stamp and they're signed for, and you get to read the warrant before you sign the warrant, or if you choose to or not. But, and that's bi-weekly, for every month of the year going back to 2009, when the feasibility money was originally voted on. And here we are, it's 2015.
Is there any more discussion before we vote? If not, Julie?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So thank you.
I think for a future discussion, we should look at our policy as a select board to try to figure out what what the cutoff will be to charge for public records. Because, other towns have run into issues where the Secretary of State has found that the amount was excessive. There's no enforcement action, but I think we need to find a middle ground, and I think we can find a middle ground, so that, people have a right to look at these records, and we're supposed to be able to produce them. That was the problem, is the amount of time it took to produce those records, which was the huge cost involved in this particular public records request. It was information I was interested in looking at as well. So, I think we should know what we spent $550,000 on for a feasibility study, and what we got for that.
But on the other hand, let's look at the fact too that our staff is pretty well, their days are pretty well spoken for. We don't have the time, our staff doesn't have the time to be taking on these kind of broad requests and, for records within their normal workday. If there's a
We have
request
to.
that takes.
We have to. We're required to.
We do have
It's
to.
No,
not
no, I
optional.
totally understand, and what my point is that we can't be forgiving. If somebody requests a service and we provide it, we need to be remunerated for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's,
The 15
know-
hours the accountant took on this cost $480. Should the taxpayers have to pay for that? Not to mention the time I put into it. I didn't even include that.
Well, you should.
well, that's the debate that I think we should have in the future, and look at our policies. Is there a cutoff date? Is there a cutoff amount?
And I think too that offering things free of charge would be, I dare I say, dangerous, because then people just, I'm just curious about this, so let me come in and make a request, and it ends up thousands and thousands of hours worth of work being done that then that other required work that needs to get done doesn't get done. So I think offering it free obviously would not be feasible, but I think also too to expect, if we have to call the law, if the law requires us to have something available and we end up having to call the attorney who charges $300 or $285 an hour to tell us where we'd find this or something, I don't think that it's fair to have the taxpayer bear that full, the individual taxpayer bear that full cost and burden either. So I think I think that there would be good to have a discussion about kind of what maybe projects that are going to that we estimate would cost $40 to accomplish, or I'm just throwing numbers out there, that we would do just as a service and with only paying for, let's say, copies and, the actual copies, they're going to be taken with individuals, but when requests are going to cost hundreds of dollars, in employee time, then that should be something that, not necessarily needs special approval, but then we have a different kind of remuneration formula that we use to determine how much, because the policy doesn't tell us what we have to charge, it tells us what the maximum we can charge
Right.
is. So we could always charge 10 cents a copy and 50% of the time, but yes.
We all agree, I think, the record keeping has been very poor in the past. The idea here to me, as someone from the community, is that we end up looking at, maybe at some point, is getting that straightened out. But from here on, that should all be in one place. It should not take a lot of time to end up getting that information. If you have a project, you have a filing cabinet or drawer for that project, and it's just a matter of going into that drawer and pulling out what that person needs. It shouldn't take a lot of time. I mean, that's the level that we should get to.
Oh, right. And I think that's the system on which
accurate.
we've based from maybe 2013 or 2014
14,
forward.
not
But I
13.
think, again, which it's obviously completely reasonable to request, as we said, the money was approved in 2009, so it's obviously reasonable to request money from 2009, 2010, 2011, but the file storage, I'll say mechanisms or procedures that were in place, the standard operating procedures were not in place then to allow. So what we could do now is, again, you dig down through the boxes from 2009 and find a file that says, oh, here's, this portion of the feasibility study expenditures. Then you have to go to a different box to find the vote at town meeting where that was actually, occurred. And then you have to go over here to find 2010s. So I think that's kind of the situation that we're in now,
I
but
think
moving
that
forward.
part, like how you're explaining it, will always be, because there's different records in different places.
You could also
Who-
print out the page from the warrant,
Right.
once it's been approved, like the town clerks.
Right, and just
And
put
just
that-
stick it in there, like, oh, here, we voted to spend 550, here's the vote, that one
That's
page.
what everybody's thinking of that.
Well, right,
Yeah,
right.
well, I know that when Bob went through and reconfigured the budget, he went back and looked at the votes.
Right.
Because as you have special town meetings and you change the dollar amounts on your
Right,
line items,
right,
then you
that's
have to
true,
keep a
right.
record of those votes, and we weren't doing that before. So
Right.
it's getting better. It's not perfect. I doubt if it ever will be. But I think it'd be useful to have a discussion
Yeah.
on what we want to do and how to proceed.
There is, as far as record keeping, just a notation that I encountered 2 years ago when looking for something for the advisory board. We keep records too long, some of them. There is standards for certain records from the state on how long to keep them. Unfortunately, we keep too much, and some of that should have long been gone, and the primary record should be kept. And there's guidelines to that. I think we need to take and end up disseminating that to the employees as to which ones and how long they should be kept. If they're not aware of what they should be.
Yes,
Yes, this is perhaps a little bit off the mark, but the advisory board has been requesting copies of budget requests from department heads for months now. Literally, I know I started talking about it at least in October, and it is now obviously the end of February. In order to do our work, I've been on advisory board in Templeton for 7 years, and I know that we used to send out and request department heads that they provide us with their budget requests, and it would certainly aid in our work if we could have it certainly
thought we were doing
prepared
it
in the
different
previous
this
budget requests.
They're not, we're
and
doing
per-
it
and
different.
percentages,
That's why they're not
et
getting
cetera,
it,
et cetera. It's really
'Cause we're not
important,
ready.
vital to our work.
unfortunately.
We've been months waiting for this information.
the process is different this year, and, in the sense that that Bob is putting together the primary budget to then be submitted over to the advisory board. But I understand what you're saying is that when you get that budget from Bob that he's put together, that you would like to have access and, copies of the request from the department heads, so you have something against which to compare the town administrator's budget, basically.
His request is, what level of funding look like, what is if it's an excess of level of funding, how much, what is the percentage?
Bob would be giving her all
It
that. We
really
would
does
be.
make a big
Well,
difference.
that's what we're gonna
That's
go
what we're
over
gonna go over
next
first.
Monday.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you'll have to
The
request.
advisory board may not always recommend the same thing as the select board.
Right.
And I can think of I can think of those in, their select board, and I'm not talking about their present select board, because I don't know, to be quite honest, but they used to have a select board, but they didn't know anything about the budget until the day of the town meeting, when the general public learned
Yeah,
about
we've
it.
been there, I think, not this board,
I
but,
think our,
yeah.
the finance committee over there, they were the ones that ended up preparing the budget.
Yours
This
is
is
set up
nobody else
different.
doing
Yeah.
it, but that was that was
Right.
a few years back, so
Yeah.
I'm not really-
Yeah, and I can ask Bob too, to the town administrator to forward to the advisory board any of those. I do know that the Board of Selectmen is having a meeting next Monday for the sole purpose of going over the budget with the town administrator, so after that meeting, we'll probably be able to maybe provide you with additional information, but also kind of get the depth of information that the town administrator has received. Yes? Oh, no, okay. Okay. Anything else on this issue? We voted, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we-
Thank you for coming. Next, we have to discuss the expanding agricultural committee. Is that you, Holly?
Yes. Christoph Chartier emailed me. He's the chairman of the agricultural committee, and there's currently 3 members. And I believe he said it was his brother that wanted to join, and they said if we need to get a 5th, we will. And I had emailed Julie because I wasn't sure how the makeup was, and she had said that the board could decide to vote to change it to 5. So I wanted to see if we could do that, or,
Yeah. I think town meeting adopted the agricultural commission right around the time, it was a little probably after we did community preservation. So it's probably been, 6 or 7 years now. So I think once the committee is established, then we can change the composition
Okay,
of the committee.
okay. So the next step would be to
To see if,
I
so
think
they're
we
not,
just
Bylaw
vote,
change,
can't-
wouldn't it?
huh?
That'd be a bylaw change, wouldn't it? Because I
It's
voted.
not in the bylaws.
No, it's not in the bylaws.
No.
So we could just,
Okay.
yeah.
Is it in the, when town meeting created the agricultural commission,
probably
did it specify 3 members?
Yeah.
If it did,
In the
then I would say we have to
You have
bring
to
it
go
to
back
town meeting.
thinking
Yeah.
of changing.
I actually haven't had a chance to check with Carol Harris. I was gonna check with
Okay,
her.
so
So
we'll
if
do
you
that.
wanna put it off till the next meeting, we can
Okay.
separate.
Is he saying why he wants to
That would be
add more?
somewhere-
Well, he has someone.
Additional interest.
Oh, because other people
People
want
wanna
to.
join,
Okay, I'm
yeah.
sorry, I didn't
I mean,
understand
that's
everything you
unusual
said.
for a
Yeah, it's
committee to
really-
want to expand.
I almost want to say, can we?
Kind of, yeah.
So
Maybe
we'll-
that's why I didn't hear it correctly.
So we'll check with
That's a
Carol
good thing, though,
It
that
is.
people want to volunteer.
about the vote that created it. Great. Okay, the final item that we have, so we'll discuss that at our next regular meeting. The final item that we have are selectmen's comments, and I'll actually start today, if it's okay, just because I don't want to forget either of the ones that I had. First, with the increased snow and whatnot, that snow and ice damming that are on people's roofs, I just want to advise everyone to obviously exercise caution. And I can't speak about individuals, but just in general terms, damage caused by ice dams, roof cave-ins from snow are generally covered under your standard issue homeowners policies. So you don't want to risk your life, if you have a little water leaking, because, that may be covered under your policy. Obviously, check with your individual insurer to see. But just kind of reminding, it heats up, well, not that it's supposed to heat up, but assuming that the spring returns, just to remember that wet snow is heavier, and to please be careful. There have been instances, none in Templeton that I know of, but in surrounding towns, of people dying from cardiac episodes related to shoveling snow. So we should be careful with that. The other issue that I wanted to bring up, and we would obviously have to discuss this and vote this in a meeting in the future, but I'm kind of in my work dealings. I've become familiar with programs that both Fitchburg and Worcester have regarding foreclosed properties, where basically it's not that complicated. It's a 2-page, the city councils pass, which obviously we don't have, but the local governing body passes a requirement that says that any bank-owned property, REO as it's known, but any bank-owned property, so these would be vacant, foreclosed upon homes that nobody's living in, that the lenders have to pay. In Worcester, it's a $5,000 bond per property, so that if someone from the community is harmed or the building isn't being taken care of and the town has to do something to remedy it, that the community then has that money to utilize. Upon a deed being recorded with registry, conveying the property to someone who's gonna actually live in it, the bond is returned minus, which I find appealing, a 10% administrative fee. So then the banks, basically, they pay a $500, at least this is how it is in Worcester. I mean, obviously, we may have to modify ours, but that, then the town keeps $500, a certain percentage of that bond. If it was a $3,000 bond, 10%, maybe $300. So then to pay to administer this program, it serves various purposes. Like I said, if something happens, if windows get broken and we have to board them up because kids are playing in the houses or something, we don't have to use taxpayer money to do it. It also encourages banks to not hold on to these vacant homes and to move them along. And I think that there is a real impact with that, particularly in Worcester, that the, especially big lenders like Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, I'm not targeting a particular lender, but these large non-community based lenders that may hold on to things, in 10 years we'll sell the land, that this encourages them to move the properties into, again, people paying, people living in there and maintaining the homes. Also, we then know exactly, part of that information is like who the property manager is, who the contact, and where to send the tax bills. So we make sure that taxes are getting paid by the bank on the particular properties. Because as you know, we are not in a position where we can afford lawyers to, spend hours chasing down these banks and with tax titles and everything else trying to collect our money. So that, it would require more employee time, obviously, to administer this, but hopefully the program would pay for itself, both in, administrative fees that would be charged to the lenders through the processing of the bonds, and then also through kind of removing blight homes and getting them back into to actual people's hands. So, yes, did you?
This is a huge problem for the Board of Health, because of the abandoned homes and the issues that creates. But could that bond also be used for legal fees to remove squatters?
Well, that is kind of the legal obligation of the bank, the owners of the real estate. Obviously, if the squatters are creating a health situation, then obviously the Board of Health. But by doing this, again, part of this, the requirement for the bond is that they provide like a day-to-day contact person. For both big lenders, it's, whatever, property management company, so that we actually have someone that we can call, to say, you have this problem, deal with it, or else we're gonna deal with it and subtract it from the $5,000 you paid us.
As the former administrative assistant for the Board of Health, I highly recommend that you do this.
Oh, great.
Highly.
And apparently it stood up to legal muster because Worcester's been doing it for years, I know. And I think that the former Attorney General kind of endorsed similar programs as a way to kind of keep these blighted homes from causing health hazard as well as financial hazards. Yes?
Yeah, the big banks, not the local banks, but
Right.
the big banks like Bank of America and Chase and Wells Fargo are not good citizens. They're not good stewards. They
Despite what the Supreme Court may tell you, that they're not real people.
yeah, anything that, I think it, 5,000 is better than nothing, but I think it should even be bigger. But anything we could do, because they're really putting an awful strain on this area.
Right. I was speaking with someone, a resident earlier, that said that they had a home that was, I think, owned by one of these big lenders, I forget which one, that's a couple streets down. It's been vacant for years. I think 2 years ago, the property management company dropped off roof shingles to shingle the roof, and the shingles are still sitting there 2 years later. They haven't even been, I won't give the address, because they might not be there anymore. But for 2 years now, the property management company has just not gotten around to actually doing the work or whatnot, so, yes.
Some communities have taken the stance also to using that money, they can do upkeep in the property, so the community, you don't see rundown properties.
Right.
Because that devaluates as far as marketing,
Right.
not necessarily our assessments, but marketing for homes in that area. It's harder to take and sell, and I'm sure you find that as a realtor, if you have a home that's not kept up next door, the value of that home that you're trying to sell is less. And either by bylaw or by using some of those funds that you're talking about, some communities have gone to that extent. So, that's your choice to
And I could do, I can call the Attorney General's office too, just to get more information, to see kind of what kind of, whether that would be something the Board of Selectmen could do, whether that would be something that we, because we do have town, can you believe May is like 2 months away,
I
like 2
know.
months and 2 days? But we do have, the annual town meeting coming up in just over 2 months,
We're
so.
gonna have to open and close the warrants.
Soon, yeah. Yeah.
As long as you don't have to shovel stone.
I know, we may have to shovel to get into the town meeting, but, so anyway, sorry, that was long-winded, but those were my selectmen comments. Julie, do you have anything you'd like to?
Just the Cabin Fever collection
yeah.
show at Camelot on Sunday, sponsored by the Narragansett Historical Society.
John, do you have anything you'd like to?
The reuse committee for the developmental
Oh, yeah.
center had their first meeting last week, and it was more of a first time get together, explain the process type of thing. The actual meetings and the work won't begin for a while because the folks, I forget what they call themselves now, but that were running the developmental center have not turned the property over to DCAM, which is Capital Asset Management. Until that's done, nothing can proceed, because once it's turned over, they poll state agencies and others to see if anybody wants any of that property. They essentially have first dibs on it, the state does. Once that polling is done, then we'll be able to identify some parcels which may be usable for some type of redevelopment. And that's when we will actually get into the process, and that probably is not gonna happen for another couple of months. So that's where we are there. The other thing, I don't know if anybody knows, but where are we on the audits that we were supposed to be having done?
Do you know how?
I do know, I'm trying to remember the date. I had just asked Kelly the other day. I think it's early March, a week or two.
Okay, but there was supposed to be an FY14 and an FY13?
Yeah, they are doing both still. There's
Oh,
a huge
okay.
list of documents that she's gotta come up with.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, okay, I was just wondering.
it is coming up, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be great to have that well underway before the annual town meeting as well, so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we should
It's
have.
gonna take a long time.
We should
Yeah.
have
Oh,
a
yeah.
public exit interview with the auditors.
Oh, right.
They explain everything.
Yeah.
We usually
Definitely.
get your management letter, and then they come in and they go over the points where you need to, it's probably gonna be a very long one. Things that we need to work on.
Diane, do you have anything? Okay. Yes.
Going back to what I had mentioned earlier about capital planning, that $50,000, you may want to end up discussing that this evening, because you have a meeting tomorrow.
can't.
Well, at least one of you should be there.
Yeah, it's, because it's not on the agenda, we can't really take action to,
As a general indication, the school came in and they basically said that they were going to spend X amount for capital planning, and they gave us just a list of things that they planned to do for some of the buildings.
Mhm.
That might, I would suggest that somebody end up doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't represent the
Mhm.
select board. The other thing is, I don't know if you received from our chairman from the advisory board, but the advisory board voted last Wednesday for deficit spending for snow and ice of $45,000.
no, I think I read it in the paper.
Pardon me?
I think I read it in the paper, I
Yes.
think, yeah.
I
Yeah.
I think he sent a letter to somebody.
I'm sure he's on
We all got
vacation. Oh, wait, Bob?
We all
Yeah.
got it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know
We're
if
aware
you
of
had-
that, yep.
Oh, the second round? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we definitely got an email
Yeah,
about that.
we didn't vote a limit.
Oh, you didn't vote a limit?
We
No,
didn't. You-
so if they need to keep going back to you for more money,
Yeah.
it doesn't need a second vote
Mm-mm.
from us. That's why we
There
voted
was a
it
lot
that
of
way.
discussion
Oh, on
on
that.
limits and
Oh, yeah, I read some of it in the paper.
And now what can we do about it?
So if there's nothing else, school budget subcommittee meeting tomorrow, 6:30 in the Kiva. School committee meeting Wednesday, 6:30 in the Kiva. Next Monday, Board of Selectmen
Budget.
meeting, where likely the only issues are town administrator report and the budget. And then everything else that needs to be discussed will likely be at our next regularly scheduled second and fourth meeting.
Can I
So-
just ask one question?
Sure.
Now that Will brought up about the deficit, we'd gotten an email about not having enough salt.
We postponed.
Do we know where that stands? I don't know if you can shed any light on that for me,
I
David?
can.
Or you,
Oh,
I
the
don't know if I've
salt's coming.
missed something,
No,
or?
when,
That
a
was
few
just
weeks
that one
ago,
storm.
the governor
Seized her.
commandeered all the
Yeah, it took all
salt.
the salt. So I was wondering if you gave any back.
I actually, I was in meeting with Bob and we were discussing it, and I called Senator Goby, and she got back to me the next day, and they somehow got some released, and the last I knew, we had gotten two loads.
It's east and west. We're west, they're east.
Yeah.
He kept everything to the east.
Yeah,
We could go south and get all the salt we want,
Yeah.
and pay to haul it.
yeah.
But
So we're okay.
Right now, you don't have an issue.
Oh, good.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
If it keeps snowing, then.
No, well, it's not, it's not.
Thank you.
Not for 10 days,
No,
right?
yeah, not for 10 days. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
We'll move.
Second?
Second,
For second, any discussion? Julie?
Yes.
Doug? I mean, John? Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
I'm like, who?
I keep waiting for